Well, howdy there, folks. James, Political Friar, coming to you again. Got the London School of Economics hat on, so we're going to talk about something to do with international relations in this one. Specifically, we're going to talk about what the heck is going on with Iran firing off missiles and blowing stuff up in their neighbors' countries. If you don't know, Iran, 2 days ago, fired off a number of ballistic missiles towards Pakistan, Iraq, and Syria. That's its neighbor to the east, Pakistan, its neighbor to the west, Iraq, and its one over neighbor to the west, Syria. And why? Why are they shooting missiles at these countries? And what are these countries going to do to retaliate? Well, the stated reason for why each of these areas was targeted in each of these neighbors is as follows. The attack in Syria was in retaliation for the suicide bombings in the city of Kerman that happened just a few weeks ago. That attack targeted Islamic State, and it was carried out in the Syrian province of Erbil, where the Islamic State probably is. It is entirely plausible that attack is exactly what Iran says it was, a retaliation for the terrorist attacks that were carried out just a few weeks ago. The attack in Iraq, it it occurred within Iraq, but it occurred within a special part of Iraq. See, Iraq is effectively divided into three, but even more formally, it's divided into two. In the north, you have a autonomous zone called Kurdistan, right? It's the Kurdish Autonomous Zone. That zone in north around the city of Erbil is pretty independent from the government in Baghdad, and it is mildly opposed to the government in Baghdad. And so the Iranians said that they were targeting an Israeli espionage shop that was taking cover in Kurdish area of Iraq. That could be. That could be true. The Israelis wouldn't have much luck operating out of Baghdad or Anbar province, but the northern part has a little bit of an enemy is my friend element because the Iranians have Kurds within their borders, and they don't want the Kurdish Autonomous Zone to be Kurdish or autonomous. I think they'd really rather that zone not exist. And so the Kurds in, self defense may very well be cooperating with the Israelis. And that actually could be that the Iranians did hit a espionage outfit that was based there. There's no doubt that Israel is running operations against Iran, and I think the Kurdish area in northern Iraq would be a natural place to run those. So I got two for two. I think the Iranians have plausibly told us the truth. And then the third strike was against an organization called Jahish al-Adul in Pakistan. This is it's a nationalist organization, but not a Pakistani nationalist organization. It's a Bukhlistani nationalist organization, and this terrorist group has been around in one form or another, for decades, and they've carried out attacks against all of their oppressors, and their oppressors in that part of the world are Pakistan, first and foremost. They carry out attacks against Pakistani security forces and Iran. See, similar to the Kurds, the Bukhlistanis are split between the border. There are folks on both the Iranian and the Pakistani side. And so the terrorist attacks have targeted both. And they've had some success recently. They killed 11 Iranian soldiers not long ago, including a colonel. And they have, in the past, successfully kidnapped Iranian soldiers and held them for hostage. And so what I think happened here is Iran got their hit in the Kerman attack from the Islamic State, and they decided to go ahead and just retaliate against everybody. Everybody who was messing with them basically got some missiles, and the Iranians, I suspect, hope that can be it. I think the Iranians are in a position that is actually somewhat akin to the Americans and the British with the Houthis, where you say, "Hey, stop that," and just whack them. It might work. The questions are going to be, what do the host governments, because other than the Israelis, well, actually, including the Israelis, these attacks were not directed at the governments of the countries where the missiles landed. The attack was directed at Islamic State, not Syria. It was directed at the Israelis, not the Iraqis. It was directed at the terrorist group, not Pakistan. But you can't rightly have a state actor just unilaterally messing, even with non-state actors that you don't like, inside your borders. It degrades your sovereignty, and it's really not a good look for, in particular, Pakistan and Iraq. See, Syria doesn't have much sovereignty at this point, but Bashar al-Assad is so beholden to Iran that he won't do anything. He's he might not even condemn it. He might not even say, "Oh, we are. This is the." He's probably just going to be quiet. Iraq has already recalled their ambassador from Iran. And so there is that first level of diplomatic show of displeasure. And the Iraqi nationalists, of which there are a good number, in particular, the folks who had experience fighting Iran in the 1980s, have started to complain. Say, yeah, the Iraqi government is closely allied with Iran based on religious affiliation. They're both Shia Muslims, but there is a vein in Iraq rather, of nationalism, where there are folks who say, we really don't have to do everything Iran says. Iraq can say no. And this violation of Iraqi sovereignty, almost certainly uncoordinated, and in particular because the Kurds have a separate military force, might actually put a little bit of a wedge between Iran and Iraq. Now, that isn't likely to last for long. Iran's ties to Iraq are tight and deep, but it isn't helpful. I mean, anything that strains that relationship probably degrades Iran's ability to influence things throughout the region. The Israelis, who actually got hit in Iraq, they may retaliate, but they're not going to retaliate openly. If the Iranians are being honest and they hit an Israeli espionage outpost, the Israelis won't admit it existed. And any retaliation that Iran gets for this will be known to the Iranians only. There might be something, but we're never going to hear about it. And so, for the purposes of this show, we're now into such a speculative area that it doesn't even make sense to analyze it. Pakistan is the most interesting case here, though. Pakistan and Iran have never had good relations. Pakistan is Sunni and Iran is Shia. And because of that, you've got a natural antipathy. During the Iranian Revolution, the Pakistanis were not friendly to the Iranian revolutionaries. And it makes some sense because Iran is a threat to Pakistan. Now, Pakistan doesn't have a lot of capacity to deal with this, though. Oh, yeah, I know. They've got a multi-million man army and nuclear weapons, but they've also got India on their southeast border, who has more millions and more nuclear weapons. And they've also got Afghanistan now on their northwest border. And Afghanistan is allowing the Pakistani Taliban, another separatist group who carries out terrorist attacks, to shelter in Afghanistan and cross border into Pakistan and carry out attacks. So Pakistan's got a lot on its plate, and that's before you realize that Pakistan doesn't have a government. What? Yeah, no, they don't have a government right now. The leader of Pakistan, Imran Khan, was deposed by the military and thrown in jail. And there's a caretaker government which is dominated by the military, and elections scheduled for next month. It's not the best time to be picking some kind of tit-for-tat retaliatory episode with your neighbors, with Iran. And so Pakistan, they don't want to retaliate, but there's another problem because the politics are domestic, and Imran Khan is in jail, not dead, and his enemy is the military. And so what does the military look like when it doesn't respond to an attack on Pakistani soil that, at least they say, killed 2 children? They look weak. And it's not going to help them with the election, especially with Khan playing the strongman. And so the Pakistanis are in a real pickle. If they do make a response, it will almost certainly be theatrical. It'll be kabuki. It will not hurt the Iranians that much. It'll be sound and fury amounting to nothing. After al-Salmani, the leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, was killed by the Donald Trump administration in Iraq, Iran fired off a bunch of missiles towards U.S. bases in Iraq. and surprisingly, nobody was killed. I suspect that's because the Americans knew it was coming. I suspect that it's because neither side wanted to go down that escalation, drain hole, spiraling down until, you've got tit for tat for tit for tat. And so they set up a show. The Pakistanis might try to do that. If you see a retaliatory strike into Iran that has minimal actual damage or casualties, that might be exactly what happened. And if that happens, then good for all of us because war is bad. War is not good for anybody around, and so let's see whether that happens. From the Iraqi point of view, you're not going to see any military, action being taken against Iran. It'll just be bad feels. So that's likely how this plays out. I think the other element to consider here is what does it look like if Pakistan retaliates against Iran, considering the context of the Hamas war against Israel. That would be a Sunni Muslim supporter of Palestine attacking a really the primary actor against Israel. I don't know that they can get away with that. So Iran, actually, Iran's the one that's probably going to get away with this. They probably made their calculations well, and it probably will just stand as this or maybe very little. Uh, I guess we'll have to see. The worst case scenario for all of us is that everybody picks up their guns and starts fighting. That's not good for anybody. And if they decide they want to do it, well, they can. Everybody's got plenty of guns, and there's nobody there to stop them. Uh, let's cross our fingers that doesn't happen because it turns out active warfare in the Middle East is real bad for gas prices. Anyway, it's just a thought. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't done that already. I really appreciate it, and maybe consider telling a friend. All right, I appreciate it. Thanks.